Hi there, and welcome to another episode of 411 Pop Culture. I'm your host, Justin Steele, and tonight we're going to be doing my very first Twin Peaks theory video. I hope to do more in the future, but honestly, there are so many theory videos out there on YouTube and Reddit, etc., that are all really good and interesting that it's kind of hard to find out or figure out something new. So, after a little bit of thought, I'm choosing to do one on something that has puzzled me for a long time. And, I think when we watch Twin Peaks or re-watch Twin Peaks, we try to look for threads or overlapping arcs or, connections from the very beginning, first two seasons, Fire Walk with Me and The Return, and try to find some coherent story. We're conditioned to have these sort of linear narratives, and Twin Peaks is very much not about that. No matter how much we try, everything, or not one single theory actually all completely adds up. The world that David Lynch and Mark Frost have created have sparked many theories and interpretations, and while there is variety in the opinions, I think there has been a general consensus on many of the major arcs of the series, especially since The Return. There are still some differences amongst theories, but many of these theories have led down succinct paths. For example, with Judy, many people have come to the agreement that Judy was inhabiting Sarah Palmer. Now, not everyone agrees with this, but the major theory is accepted as a possibility. Again, it's David Lynch and Mark Frost, so very few times does everything all add up. Nevertheless, most of the major theories have been documented or noted, and so it is a little difficult to come up with something new. Still, part of the joy and part of the experience is the fun in analyzing Twin Peaks. Even though most of us love the ambiguity, we are, as an audience, conditioned to make narrative sense out of things. I have recently rewatched the series and Fire Walk with Me, which then led me to rewatching Twin Peaks theory videos on YouTube. And one thing that has always nagged me or has always been in the back of my mind is something that I have seen come up on these Twin Peaks theory videos. Mainly, this nagging feeling comes from watching the end of Fire Walk with Me, and also before the end, the part with Dale Cooper telling Laura not to take the ring. We all know the owl symbol ring, and we all know that, like Hawk has stated, energy is neither good nor bad in and of itself. It is the intent behind it that can be either negative or positive. We all know that by the end of Fire Walk with Me, Laura does take the ring, and this provokes Bob into his final rage in killing her, and thus instigating the beginning of seasons 1 and 2, and ultimately The Return. And even more so, Cooper's journey through time at the end of The Return. Now, as I've watched a lot of theory videos, there is one thing that I've noticed, a sort of reoccurring observation, something that I don't necessarily agree with. Using different adjectives, many theorists seem to think, though, that Laura is somehow happy at the end of Fire Walk with Me. They describe her as finally being at peace. The angel is there, Coop is helping her transition, etc. However, I don't think that she is happy. I think she is, perhaps, mildly relieved for the moment, but as the scene continues, she continues to cry, and almost laughing through her tears. But I've never really interpreted this as happy laughter, or relieved laughter. Maybe momentary relief from where she just was, but that relief is incredibly fleeting. I have always thought the look on Shirley's face as Laura is a look of sarcasm, or, more specifically, identifying the irony of her situation. She has traded one hell for another hell, especially now that we know that she is somehow originally connected to the White Lodge. The fact that she has landed in the Black Lodge is not good. I mean, the Black Lodge is not really hell, so to speak, but we could analyze that forever. But for generic terms, the Black Lodge is a bad place and the White Lodge is a good place. Dale warned Laura not to take the ring. I've noticed a lot of theories suggesting that Dale may have been mixed up, that he was misinformed, basically that he was wrong to tell Laura not to take the ring. We have certainly learned that since the return, Dale has always been trying to save Laura from her death. Whether or not he knew it during the original 2 seasons is up for debate, but it is definitely something that happened being in the lodge. David Lynch's Gordon Cole talked to Dale before his 25-year disappearance, so Dale was certainly cooking something up as early as Fire Walk With Me. Regardless, he has always tried to prevent Laura's death. Laura and Dale shared a dream. He was reaching for her from the future and she to him from the past. At some point, Dale must have realized that he was communicating with Laura before her death and thus could prevent her fate. Maybe he even thought it was a better plan for Bob to possess Laura than to kill her. If Laura was still alive, albeit possessed by Bob, Dale Cooper could try to find a way to rid Laura of Bob's spirit like with Leland Palmer. I mean, Leland and Bob eventually did separate. Instead, Dale and Laura became trapped for 25 years in the lodge and had to become Richard and Carrie Page to finally start to fix things. And unless we get a 4th season or a new movie, it does not look like that plan is going all too well. Personally, I'd like to think there's some hope, but Lynchian themes don't always work out best for the protagonists. Now, I love Laura Palmer. I think she is a tragic hero. Whether or not it was right, she took a final stand against her oppressor. Her life was spinning out of control, and she took back what little control she had by putting on the ring. However, hearkening back to Dale's warning, it may have been a tragic flaw. The ring itself is maybe neither good nor evil, however, the lodge spirits certainly do not seem to have Laura's best interest at heart. Throughout Fire Walk With Me, it appears that Mike wants to maybe help Laura. He points out to Laura that her father is really Bob. Mrs. Tremont/Mrs. Chalfont and her grandson give her the painting that ultimately leads her to future Dale Cooper in the lodge. And if my specific theory is correct, then this assistance might have helped her. However, each of these acts by lodge spirits can also be looked at as serving their own self-interest more than helping Laura. Helping Laura is only incidental. Mike really wants back his canned corn or garmonbozia, or pain and sorrow if you will. And who knows why Mrs. Tremont and her grandson really gave Laura the painting. Sure, it could have potentially helped her, but just as much it could have hurt her. We do not know the Arms or the Man from Another Place's motivation in wanting Laura to take the ring. He could have just wanted to win against Bob. Or he could have wanted to help Bob. The motivations of the lodge spirits can be very ambiguous. Like he says, "With this ring I thee wed." The Arm may have wanted to claim Laura as a lodge spirit, especially now knowing after episode 8 of The Return that she originated from the White Lodge. Perhaps it was a perverse pleasure for him to steal a White Lodge creation and turn that creation into a Black Lodge spirit. Or look what happened to Annie Blackburn. Maybe Dale knew what happened to Annie even from inside the lodge. The missing pieces and the final dossier explain what happened to Annie after leaving. She was wearing the ring and it certainly did not help her situation at all. Did Doppelganger Coop help Annie out, or was it the ring? Did wearing the ring for Annie put her further in a semi-comatose state? Or did its temptation lead to the nurse taking the ring and thus keep Annie in a semi-comatose state? Did the ring matter at all for Annie? I don't know for sure, but it didn't seem like the ring helped Annie at all, and therefore Dale could have been right to warn Laura not to take the ring. Again, as much as I love that Laura took a stand one way or another, the eventual situation that she as Carrie Page is now in could have been avoided altogether. I do enjoy the theory that she was sort of semi-protecting herself in another way via the missing page of her diary theory, as in, Carrie Page herself is the lost missing page from the diary and thus enables her existence. I have another theory about that though, regarding another very important and very forgotten character from Twin Peaks. However, I do believe that Dale Cooper was right to warn Laura not to take the ring. I also think that Laura is not at peace at the end of Fire Walk with Me. So, many people do, and I get it, but my first and lasting impression has been that she was laughing almost sardonically at her new situation. The angel that disappeared from her painting is there in the lodge at the end, but she and the angel do not physically reconnect. She is not transported to the White Lodge or heaven or wherever. I know some Twin Peaks fans also call this the waiting room, but the return seems to confirm that she is in fact trapped in the Black Lodge with Dale. She is crying and also laughing through her tears. Maybe it is with relief from her recent life experiences and the lack of fear from Bob, but I don't believe so. I believe that she is no better off and she knows it. She is laughing at the irony of her situation. She knows that she has left one trap with no control into another trap with no control. Cooper is comforting her, but it seems like the kind of comforting of, well, you may have failed, but you tried, you did your best. This is different, but just as bad. And now we are both trapped, and they now have to wait 25 years to try again. Now, I am personally super curious about how things would have picked up from this point in the Twin Peaks timeline, and I don't mean the one within the show, I mean like the literal seasons 1, 2, Fire Walk with Me, and then almost 20, or over 25 years later, The Return. I would like to know what would have happened with the original plan to do. Once season 2 was canceled, the show was canceled, they did Fire Walk with Me. And then they were planning to do 2 more movies after that as a sort of trilogy. I really would have liked to have known, picking up from that moment, how things would have gone. There are some hints at how a 3rd season would have gone. Major Briggs would have spent the season trying to save the good Dale Cooper. However, I think Fire Walk with Me really pushed Lynch to expand the mythology. So, if I encountered Philip Jeffries and could pick a place in time to change in Twin Peaks lore, I would still have the show be canceled after season 2, but see where 2 more films after Fire Walk with Me would have gone from that moment. Because if season 3 had happened, I'm not so sure that we would have such a dense mythology that we now have regarding Twin Peaks. And I don't think that we would have been able to experience the amazing film that Fire Walk with Me is. And it is amazing. It's horrifying, thrilling, and sad. But most of the lore in The Return came from Fire Walk with Me, and being able to see Cheryl Lee actually perform Laura Palmer is a stunning experience. The final scene shows a very nuanced performance. On the surface, it may look like she is crying tears of joy, but I think there are several emotions going on. She now knows that she made a big mistake in not listening to Dale. Part of the tragedy is that she couldn't understand it before that moment. Which, of course, is a major theme of Twin Peaks. We are given puzzle pieces that we can't understand until much later. Then, once we fit them in, we can understand what came before, but then it only makes things more confusing in that moment, and in the future, or the past again, or the future past. Ah, Twin Peaks. I just believe that in how things turned out, it would have been better for Laura to temporarily be possessed by Bob, and it would have helped with Dale's plans for her to be possessed by Bob, because he could then eventually separate them and thus not have to literally go through time, at least over 25 years worth of time, in order to save Laura, because now he has achieved that goal by the end of The Return. Instead, though, like, some people use this sort of idea of the time as like cyclical, like a pendulum, that the further you get one way in time in the future, the further it affects the past, etc. And if this had all happened during the Twin Peaks seasons 1 and 2 only take place over a couple of weeks, for Dale to come in and manage to get into the Black Lodge, communicate to Laura in the past, find a way to get back out, and then save Laura, maybe that could have helped in the long term in preventing Laura's death, instead of them being stuck in there for 25 years, and then he has to go through all this stuff, becoming Dougie Jones, dealing with all the stuff that doppelganger Coop has done, etc. And instead, if Laura had just not taken the ring, of course, it's not great to be possessed by Bob. That's not ideal, but she still would have been physically alive, and Coop wouldn't have to really go back in time other than to talk to her through her dreams, which, might have been his whole purpose for getting into the Black Lodge to begin with. And instead, he himself is trapped. His whole life is thrown off. Laura dies. She's trapped in the Black Lodge. And instead, like I said, these spirits could have been doing this because they wanted to take a hold of Laura, because she does represent this sort of good energy, this good power. And now that we're learning more about Judy, or Jowday, if you will, she's having more of a chance now to get Laura herself, as opposed to just Laura being alive and being saved to begin with. I just think in the end that it would have been interesting to see if Laura hadn't taken the ring, but that is the tragedy of the story, because Twin Peaks is definitely a show that puts a spotlight on the best of human nature and the worst of human nature, and tragedy certainly is a large part of human nature. Well, thanks for watching another episode of 411 Pop Culture, where real people talk about really everything. I just wanted to finally do a Twin Peaks theory video because it is one of my all-time favorite shows. I am your host, Justin Steele. Please watch some other episodes, and if you like what you see, please subscribe. Have a good one.